Hey everyone, I'm Randall Stoner, also known as Randy, Mad Carver, Stoner, a number of different things. And I'm here with the International Association of Woodcarvers, and we're going to discuss carving today.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for coming in on this Saturday afternoon. It's July the 15th, a little bit after 3 p.m. And this is the International Association of Woodcarvers. Appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday here in the middle of summer to come in and meet with us. We've got a special guest today. I think you all will be interested to hear from. We got Randy Stoner that's coming to us from California that's going to be talking a lot about his carving journey, about his art that he creates. He's going to talk some about sharpening. We're going to go through some pictures and stuff of his work. And before we start talking about that, I want to tell you a little bit about things that are coming up with us. I know we talked about just having one meeting a month through the summer months, but I've called an audible and decided to change that up just a tad. On the 29th of July, so in 2 weeks, we're going to have Chris Hammock come in. He reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about having him come on and talk a little bit about the upcoming CCA show that's going to be going on in Colorado Springs in September. So if you'll put that on your calendar on July the 29th, we'll have Chris come in. I think I'm going to auction a autographed Chris Hammock Helvey signature knife on that day as well. So if you want the opportunity to bid on that knife, make sure you come live on the meeting so that you can bid. You have to be present to win that. And again, it's a Chris Hammock autographed Helvey knife. I'll be showing that on social media probably over the next couple of weeks so you can see that. But again, that'll be on July the 29th. On August the 26th, then that'll be our August meeting. Rich Smithson from Helvey Knives is going to be coming on, and he's going to be actually making some knives live on our meeting, and we'll auction those knives off also. Helvey's been really good to donate knives to allow us to auction those off. So that we can continue to pay for the Zoom subscription that we use every week. So we appreciate Rich and Holly so much. That's why we have their sign over here. They've been a big help as far as helping us keep these meetings going. And again, Rich is going to come in, talk about making knives, show us how he does it, and then we'll auction the knives off that he actually makes during that meeting. So make sure you plan on tuning in that August the 26th meeting. We're starting to take people for September. We've got Brian Doty that's going to be on the 2nd of September. The 9th and the 16th we have open right now. So if anybody on here is interested in presenting on those dates, reach out to me and let me know, and I'll get you signed up. On the 23rd of September, that's going to be the CCA show. So myself and Dave Levy is going to be out there in Colorado Springs. We'll have our own International Association of Woodcarvers table that we'll be sharing with Woodcarving Academy. And I think Dave Stetson's going to be there with us. We're going to be advertising our meetings, talking about our YouTube videos, and Dave will have some special things that he'll be giving away there. So if you come to Colorado, make sure you stop by our table and say hello. But if you don't, we're going to be broadcasting live there on the 23rd of September. So if you're not able to make it out there, make sure you tune in to our meeting. Again, we'll be going through the show, telling you about who won prizes, what all they have available, and hopefully you can put that on your calendar or make it part of your bucket list to maybe come next year if you're not able to make it this year. But again, that's September the 23rd. September the 30th, Rich Embling from the United Kingdom is going to be coming in and meeting with us. He's met with us before. And then on October the 7th, we got Tom Wilkinson that's going to be coming back and meeting with us. So again, we're working on getting dates. Starting in September, we'll be doing a weekly meeting every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to remind you all about Woodcarving Academy. I talk about this every week. If you're wanting to learn at your own pace, make sure you go out and try to subscribe to Woodcarving Academy. There's a lot of great instruction out there that you can participate in at your own pace and learn from some of the best instructors out there. So make sure you go out and check out woodcarvingacademy.com. They also have listed on there the workshops that are coming up, and I'll run through those quickly. On August the 7th, Janet Cordell is going to be starting a class on carving the American cowboy. If you're interested in that, reach out to Janet Cordell. Bob Hershey, who is on here right now, he has a class starting August the 19th, carving fabulous Phoebe, which is a frog that has a floaty on, getting ready to jump in the water. That's going to be a cool class. So if you want to sign up for that, reach out to Bob Hershey. And then September the 2nd, Dave Stetson, who's on here also, is going to be teaching a class on wood carving an angel. If you're interested in that, reach out to Dave and get signed up. I think there's also a rough out available. So you'll need to reach out to Dwayne Gosling to get that rough out. These instructors will let you know what you need to participate in the class. So the earlier you sign up, the better. Reach out to them, find out the materials that you'll need, if there's a rough out or a cutout, and get signed up for those classes. You'll be glad that you do. Again, you can see all the instruction that the instructors show during their teaching. And it's not like going to a live class where you may only get to spend a little bit of time with the instructor. You see everything that they're doing. And some of them, the classes are 12, 15 hours, something like that. So make sure you participate in those classes if you can. Having said all that, and I know that's a lot to take in, today on our meeting, we've got Randy Stoner. You all may know him as the Mad Carver. You may know him as the Randall or Stoner. He's a fantastic carver. I look forward to hearing from him. He's got a lot of information to share. He's been carving a long time. He's coming to us again from California. So Randy, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you. We look forward to hearing from you. And this is going to be kind of a conversation between he and I. I'm going to try to lead the witness a little bit, but I think the conversation will come easy. So Randy, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. First of all, if you can tell us a little bit about how you got started and what got you into carving the way that you do now.
Well, let's see. I think the beginning was, like many of us possibly, the Scouts. And I think I was around a pit of fire with a bunch of other kids, and the father was just carving away, caricature carving as well. And I was like, wow, that is like really super cool, And well, I asked him about it. He handed me a knife. I did then go ahead and proceed to cut myself, but it wasn't too bad. And so I learned a little bit there. I thought it was super cool, but didn't really get back to it again until after I had returned to the United States around 27 years old, married and ready to start life. But did get back into it then. And the first thing that I thought to myself was, inherently, it can be dangerous to hold a knife and a piece of wood and try to cut the wood and not your hand. So I kind of experimented with putting the wood down on the bench. And then I experimented a little more and a little more and a little more. And I found relief carving was the way to go for me. So I went that route. And that's how I started pretty much.
So I'm going to jump into something here that we were talking about before you hopped on here. Your background is in martial arts. Yeah. You went to Japan, spent some time over there. Talk a little bit about that before you get into the wood carving stuff, and then what brought you back to the States.
Okay, martial arts. Well, at around 19 years old, I took a self-defense class in college. It was just a community college, and I found out that instructor had a dojo of his own. Dojo, a learning studio of his own, and it was not far away. And spent some time there, maybe a year and a half or so, and he invited him and a bunch of other studios, gathered funds to invite the instructors from Japan to America. I saw what they were doing, and they discussed, after class, a course, an instructor's course that they led every year. And it was a certain number of foreigners combined with a certain number of Tokyo riot police. And we would all train together. It was interesting, a little frightening, but interesting anyway. And so I found out about that and saved, sold, did whatever I could to come up with enough funds to go, and showed up in Japan. So went to the dojo, joined the course, and started it. And 3 weeks after starting, 14 foreigners dropped to 4. And the 14 riot police officers were all still present. So it was them and us, and we proceeded to go through the next year training, and then after a year I had a black belt, which, by the way, in Japan means nothing. It means zero. It means you understand the basics of martial arts, this martial art, and nothing more. So until you get your second, third, fourth, fifth, or so on, you really don't mean anything. And then I moved back to America, Orange County, California. I had a girlfriend that soon, 3 months later, turned into a wife. And now, you know, I just do everything she says, and everything's great.
So before we jump into looking at carvings, we talked some on Thursday night, I think it was, myself and Dave Levy and you. We're talking about the importance of creating a story with your carving. Yeah. And how important it is for you to capture that story. And I think we talked with Dave Stetson a little bit before the meeting about your perspective. I think these guys would probably be interested in hearing about that and kind of why you take your carvings to the degree that you do. So can you go through some of that and talk about why it's important, you think, to tell the story and what your goal is with the carvings that you work on?
Cool. So for me, relief carving opened a magical area for me, because sure, you could take a relief carving, put a main subject in there, carve the subject, and then put in an obscure background, and it's still super beautiful. But for me, I have been reading, I basically for years and years, I created, magical, hyper realistic, carvings, sculptures that depicted scenes of, magic users and fighting and medieval and, all sorts of stuff like that. And for me, it all came from the books that I've been reading my entire life, and now I'm, for the last 20 years, I've been listening to Audible. So now I got Audible in one ear and carving in my hands, and then I'm looking at my stuff, and then, it's, for me, it's all one thing now. So, I'll be listening to magic users over here and then carving a magic user here. And then for me, it's wonderful. So the concept that, they're talking about is when you put your main subject in there and, it's a known angle, you can totally recognize what it is, but it's super strange, like you're looking from the back through underneath somebody's arm, and he's holding a gun in his left hand. So now you're getting the back, the ground, the building in front of all of that, plus the gun, the arm, the hand, the fingers, the body. You're getting this super strange angle that you totally recognize, but you won't ever see it like that again. So it's like super strange, but totally recognizable. And then you have everything behind it. So the story for me is, that's my main subject, everything I just explained. But then you have, an oncoming car. You have a guy, pointing a gun out that car at you. You might have mountains in the background. You might see the entire length of the street and the road in the middle of the street, the line. You might have everything. For me, that is everything. The story, the main subject is certainly important and required, but everything around and behind is really what I'm after. That's the story. And that's important to me for when I do the carving.
Well, and we talked some about the fact that it's not just completing a carving and then moving on to another one. You don't move on from that carving until you make sure it has everything in it that you want it to show.
Yeah, and then some, because I think some of us, at least with relief carving, I'm not too sure about the in round, but if I've carved the entire art, because usually I have the art completed before I start the work. So if I have the art completed and I complete everything in the thing, and I'm like, okay, well, I still got like half an inch over here that isn't really in use, I think I'm going to throw a bent up old can on the ground, or I'm going to I'm going to stripe in there part of a door or a tire. Anything that will fit the perspective, that will fill up the space and add to the story is really what I'd like to do. So I do.
And when you say that you already have the art done, so do you sketch all this out before you actually start carving it?
Yeah, either an artist has helped me, or if I'm on a team of carvers working together, then sometimes I'll get the art and I'll just work on what's been given to me. And if I have to create it myself, then that takes a lot longer because I'm not really an artist in that regard. But I get by, I'll conglomerate a bunch of pictures together and I'll say, okay, here's my main subject and this is the perspective I have to work with, because that's my main subject and I love that and I want that. So anything that goes in behind or around has to match that perspective. So it may take me months and months to find all the things that I want. So say, behind me, I have a picture, I have a carving up there of a gambler who's throwing dice into the air. And that's like 60 different pictures, which is, the main guy. And then he's throwing dice. And then he's got a barrel underneath him with coins sitting on top. And I had to put all those things together that matched the perspective of the main character, which was the guy throwing dice. Everything behind it, everything on him, even his cowl, all that stuff was removed and put in a different place. So it takes forever if you're not an artist, you can't draw it yourself, but yeah, it's key.
Well, let's get into some of the carvings. Dave, if you want to put some of the pictures up on the screen, we're going to do some screen sharing and have Randall walk through some of the stuff that he's provided for us. So give us just a second and Dave will throw that up on the screen. While we're talking about that, Randall will be talking a little bit about sharpening too, and the importance of sharpening your tools at the end. So that'll be something else that we'll be talking about. Dave, are you going to try to find specific pictures or?
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to the ones we talked about earlier.
Okay.
All right, we'll start. I think this is one he was chatting about.
Yes, that's part of the martial arts whole thing. One of those 4 guys that finished that course with me was Australian, and he went back home and started his own studio, and he's been at it for 25, 30 years like me now. And you've probably seen in any number of movies of a bunch of students in a dojo or a place where they study, and they all bow forward at the beginning of class, and at the end of the class they also bow forward, and then they all leave. The place that they're bowing forward to in the Japanese language is called a shomen, which means forward, and it's kind of a little shrine, and he wanted this in his shrine. And this is a well-known Aikido technique called udegarami, and that's just an explanation of what he's doing to the arms there. And he wanted the Japanese concept. The Japanese writing on the right-hand side says Aikido Yoshinkan, and then there's a New South Wales in English there. And on the other side, I can't read it because it's Chinese, and so it doesn't have the same pronunciations that would normally be for Japanese. So, but he wanted it, he got it, he's the customer. This one is, we called it Archmage. This was a customer's request. He used a different name for a different character, but I called it Archmage because I didn't want to have problems with people that own that figure. So this was fun. I wish I had time to redo the background. The background is not in perfect perspective, but the character itself is gorgeous, I think. I think I did all right with the randomness of hair and the inner folds and overlapping of the hair when you got lots of it, and the staff and the hat, I think I did all right on that. He was very happy with it. And so in the end, it's all about how happy is your customer.
And Randall, can you talk about, do you build those designs out with wood and then carve them back, or do you just start with a block and just cut away what you don't need?
Yeah, I've been schooled on the meaning of laminate recently. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I think I understand laminate in this regard. I used to think of laminate as like a smaller piece of wood being added to a larger piece of wood. And in fact, it's also could be the same large piece of wood connected or glued to yet the same exact piece of another large piece of wood. So that's what I normally did for most of these carvings. So when you see a really big one, like the gambling one down in the right corner, or this one here, these are just huge. And so I would lock like what I can find at the lumberyard here. And in a lot of cases before COVID, it was easier to just go to the lumberyard and pick up wood. And I did a lot of that, even though I didn't need the wood at the time, which saved me through COVID because I had all this wood and didn't have to go and get any. But that wood was 1.75 inches in thickness. And so I would cut like 15 to 20 inches of that 3 times and glue all 3 of those together. Then I just get under, 6 inches in some cases, 4 inches in other cases, depending on what I thought I needed in order to create this stuff, Like the gambler one here is, I think, a laminate more like what I was thinking. I think I have 3.5 inches in thickness overall, and then the dice, I pushed those out another 3 inches so that they really just stuck out to like 6 inches on one spot or 2 spots, and everything else was at like 3.5. So I do laminate wood together, but then I start the project and finish the project as a giant block. This one was a lark. I was creating this because I had a customer that has been with me for years, and he always talked about Harry Potter, owls, and how cool they are. So I created that thinking, I think he's going to love this, and he loved it. So I was happy. But this one was actually kind of challenging initially. I thought it was going to be super simple. It was, for the most part, not too difficult, but these angles in here are really, they start high on the left and they go very low on the right. But getting all of those lines to match up exactly isn't as easy as it seems, because each one of these has an angle that is going in a completely different direction. So you have the top of the brick that's going in a different direction. You have the bottom of the brick that is actually going in a different direction, although it's hard to tell from straight on. And then it has the bottom portion of the wall going off into the background with the back part of the wall that is in front. So it had some complications, and the painting was interesting because there were like 4 or 5 knots on this block, which wasn't too hard to carve through. But as soon as you started putting stain on it, it would show up next to it and above it, but it wouldn't penetrate the knot. So it left a real problem there, and I had to deal with it with acrylic paints, and it wasn't so bad after that. But yeah. My first dog. Yes, I had a friend at work that said his wife was unconsolable about their pet having passed away, and he wanted to commission me for this. So I had this picture, and I said, okay, I'm going to just carve it out of what I normally use. And I actually had some 4-inch thick basswood, which was perfect because I could just print out a standard photocopy, which would give me 8.5 by 11. So I just took a single photocopy, put it on the block, traced it over, and started working. I put in a minor background because it contrasted so well. So this was my first dog, and I think it was really, really more challenging than it needed to be. And I'm not sure if you other guys and girls have the same issue, but I looked at the photo, I understood the photo, I got what I needed to do, but for some reason I ended up spending like I don't know, 8 or more hours staring at his right eye. I could not see the depression below it. I thought it was pointing towards me. It was more convex than concave, and it just bothered me for hours. But eventually picked it up and got it all back in. Made some hair down below, got the body right, the nose, made a texture for the nose. The texture is just pick up, put down a ball abrasive bit, and ad nauseum up and down. The hair, we've all done that before, just kept carving it in and carving it in.
Hey, Randall, before we move on to another one, if you can talk a little bit, that one had some painting, different colors and stuff. Can you talk about your painting technique and your finishing?
For the most part, what I do, at least for these carvings here, are I usually hit the entire block with a stain first. And what that does for me is it penetrates any crack that is present. And so if you look at the larger cracks on any of your work, this one in particular, there is just, there's hair everywhere. So there's cracks everywhere. So if there are depressions like that everywhere, then all of those depressions have to be dark, because when you look at it with any sort of light, each of those cracks or depressions will be dark. So you pretty much hit the whole thing with stain. And then after I've hit the stain, then I start to determine where the lighter colors are and the darker colors are. Then there's obviously, this dog is a brown dog, but it has black patches and it's white over here. And he or she is kind of old, so they got some, spattering of white and gray over here. So you come up with those 4 or 5 answers, and then you just kind of hit them like not randomly, but you hit them like all brown in this area, all black in this area, all white in this area. And then at that point, you start to blend. So, or at least I do. So I go, here's the chest, it's all white. I'm not even going to touch the white until the very end, because if you're working around white, it just gets dirty no matter what you do. So I worked with all of the darker browns, then I put in the lighter browns, and then I put in the super light browns, and then I blended those browns together so that it would be gradual movement across the entire piece. Then I slowly dry brushed in white and gray, and then I did the white at the end. And when it was all really dry, a couple days dry, then I would go back in again and dry brush white and gray here and there. The eyes, of course, were last as well. There's this gold that I had to use there and just painstakingly make them round so that they matched irises. So I think in a lot of ways it was just typical painting, but yeah, the dry brushing I think really makes it stand out.
So do you have a particular carving that would be your favorite?
That would be Master Miner, although this one's great too. This was a fun one. It was my first introduction into trying to paint any of my work. And I think this one was weird for me because I was like, I finished this carving and it's, I think, really cool. And now I'm going to potentially damage it by putting paint on it. I'm not sure I should do this, and kind of just held my hand up there going, am I really going to do this? So I eventually did do it, and I think it turned out okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're doing those carvings, most of them are framed up. So you carve the carving first and then put the frame around it afterwards.
Yeah, that's correct. And I started adding that hole in the top and the bottom and the sides so that I could let in the ambient light and you wouldn't need extra lighting when you've mounted it or placed it where you want it. And
Nice.
most of the customers that have that are very happy with it. It's a terrible pain to do is, you know, cutting holes after the fact, and it's a pain in the butt, but the customers appreciate it, so did it.
Right. Dave, can you find the picture of the miner, the one that he was talking about that's his favorite? I think it's
There's
towards the
another one
bottom.
right there called SAG. Can you go back up to SAG? There. SAG, yeah, consolidated. So this one was another gunslinger that I did, and this one was probably in the top 3 of my most difficult or challenging works, because this is a good, what are we looking at? I think it's probably a good 30 inches tall by maybe approximately 20, 22 inches wide. It's a big carving. And the idea here was to take that airship and put a rope ladder on it that would be hanging down out into the wind and have it do what it would normally do in the wind, and then have that guy swinging on it, you know, the gunslinger, and then have that ladder come out as far as I can get it to come out and not break, and then get it to look like a ladder, and then put a bunch of stuff in the background that showed action and story and complete world that none of us have seen in real life. And then I had all that room at the top, and I'm all, you know what, this is a giant waste of wood. So I'm gonna make a second city up there and put another airship in up there. And then I was like, okay, well, you know, behind his legs, that's a waste of room. So I put a city in there. And so I just kept thinking, I got this extra wood here. What can I do with it? And then I just couldn't stop building since I had the room to work. Then I threw that train in there. Mom, that's some cool action. Now let's make it a sleek train that you would see in a futuristic movie, because it fell into the concept for me of steampunk and gunslinger. So I ran with that concept and built this. I did well at the fair. That was a winner. And sold, so I was happy. My favorite carving of all time, I suppose. Well, I've done a lot. I like a lot of them. Maybe.
While he's looking for that, Randall, we talked some the other night about the fact that you don't use knives in any of your carving.
Right.
Most of yours is gouge work, gouges, V-tools, skews. Can you talk a little bit about why you do that, and maybe some of your process? How much of it do you route? Do you route any of it? Is all of it done with gouges? Kind of what is your process when you go to carving one?
Well, so with these works that you're seeing here, it's all chisel and it's no knives. I think the knives have their place, and I know some relief carvers that do in fact use knives, but for me, I think the early education in the Boy Scouts, in addition to returning home from Japan and starting carving again, with cutting myself a few times as well, and I think I was just being a fool, to tell the truth, and not following proper safety practices. And that's why I got hurt those times. But it had enough of an impact on me to want to put the wood down and not be in a position of vulnerability like that. So with that experience, I saw chisels as a safe way for me to carve, and kind of went full tilt on that. And so, you know, I eBayed some old tools from a clockmaker, got those, eventually saved up. You know, when I was 27, just having come home and gotten married, there was no money. and there was no money for me, and there was no extra money at all. So there wasn't even asking or begging my new wife for some money. So I had to kind of just get it done with little to nothing. And so I ended up eventually saving like 2, 3 years, 4 years, and getting my first file set, Swiss made file set. And slowly I've built them over time, like all of us. But none of those, since those first days, have been knives. So I only use the chisels. Now with the chisels, I've kind of fallen in love with number 2s and number 3s. I love number 7s. I generally work within the 16 to 2 millimeter range, corner to corner. And it's really, even this work here, which is very big, was done with those just mentioned tools. So in some cases, I have used a chainsaw to, if the piece is giant, I would hack off a massive piece. I think I did hack off a giant piece. This was at one point 8 inches thick by something really big. It was like a 2-year creation. So I think the whole piece was like 3 feet wide by, like, trying to guesstimate, maybe like 45 inches tall, something like that. It was really a very big carving. And so I think I did end up hacking off quite a few pieces with a chainsaw. In some cases, I think I used a sawzall at one point just to get off big giant pieces. I also work with a team of carvers, and we do a lot of sign-like material, sign-like carvings, and I do use routers on that. And of course, I use a rotary tool, one of the micro motors, and of course, in the beginning, I used really cheap ones from, Amazon or whatever, like $20 rotary tools. Bits, tons and tons of bits. You've used a lot of Kutzall bits and stuff. So there's a lot of power carving in there as well. But all of those are just a means to an end. And the end would be get the carving to a point where it's kind of roughed out, or the junk part of the wood is gone. So I can get to work with what I really, really, really want to do, which is pull out the chisels and start creating. So that's really how it works for me with the chisels.
Well, I think this is a good opportunity to lead into the importance of sharpening. And I know that's one of the big things that we had talked about the other night when we were talking, is how you have your setup as far as sharpening, and the fact that you carve about 16 hours a day sometimes, and how you sharpen so that you're able to stay, or like I like to say, keeping your tools in the wood instead of spending a whole lot of time sharpening and not a whole lot of time carving. So can you go through that process, talk a little bit about the solution that you came up with, and why you do what you do? And I think a lot of people will be interested in seeing the wheel that you use and talking a little bit about why that works well on the gouges. So can you go into that?
Sure. So I think initially, when I first started carving, I think, and this falls in line with, for a lot of us, is that you start with a sharp chisel, or a sharp knife. A friend did it for you. You bought it brand new and it was sharp, any number of things. Sharp, you're having a great time. You really love this stuff. You're showing all your friends and they've had enough of you talking about it. It's just so much fun for you. Then it slowly starts to dull and you're like, I can still make this work. And one of two things happens. You either catch yourself before you cut yourself, or you cut yourself. And that usually leads to the same thing, which is I need to sharpen these tools because that was bad, or it could have been bad. And surely if this was sharp, it would have been bad, but it would have been better than what just happened. So for me, I was always stuck between not having any clue how to sharpen anything and trying to learn how to sharpen things. So I ended up dulling a lot of really great tools, trying to learn how to sharpen. And a lot of the times what was happening was anytime I'd sharpen, I would round the edge. I'd round the cutting edge from either the strop or, the stone or the diamond wheel or whatever I was using to try to sharpen. And so I came up with a method that worked for me then, which was spend 30 seconds sharpening, or rather honing, and then get back to carving. I wanted to spend, 59 minutes and 30 seconds carving and only 30 seconds sharpening. And I wanted to do that every single time I carved. And the only way I could imagine making that happen was to create a system that would allow me to do that. And for me, what I came up with was a standard buffing wheel that you can get on Amazon for like 80 bucks. And I brought some leather here. This is just like some standard Tandy leather company leather, which you can, I think you can get the same stuff on, eBay or any number of places, Amazon even probably, I don't know. But it's just basic leather. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick. And so what I did was I determined the diameter of a wheel that I wanted to create for the stropping station I was creating. And so it was a 1/2 inch spindle on the polisher. So I needed 1/2 inch hole in the center. So I made these circles on the leather, 4 inches in diameter. And I made like 10 or 12 of those, and I glued them together. And I made 2. And the first one I used leather glue because it made sense. Making a leather wheel, I need leather glue. And that didn't work out because when you use leather glue on leather, it's meant for garments, bags, and followed up by stitching to make it even stronger. And so I didn't stitch it, so it separated as it was working and became completely unusable. So the second one I did was I made it the same thing with just standard wood glue, and it just locked it together. And then I just put, like, if it was a 4 inch diameter, I put like a 3 inch washer on one side, another 3 inch washer on the other side, put it on the spindle, put the nut on, turned it on, and then sanded it as best I could until it was basically running true. Once I got to that point, I just added compound, started sanding, I started polishing, and it worked out. And the key point with all of this is that by using the wood glue to put the leather together, it made it a very hard block of leather. And you're only sharpening your chisels on the outside of the leather, right? So you created your circle. And so now you're really only looking at this end, right? And if you got a bunch of these together all the way across for your maybe 3 inches of width by 4 inches thick, then, pardon me, 4 inches diameter, then you're really only working with that edge. So as you're stropping across your block, the piece you've created, you're really only working with that edge. So any glue that you had put on there to smash it together is irrelevant because you're only working on the end anyway. So that made it a really strong and hard block of leather. And by it being hard, it really diminishes the ability for you to round your edge on the cutting edge. So if you're putting your tool up against, the wheel spinning clockwise, and you're putting your tool right on it, it's easier to see the edge of your cutting edge and the section of the wheel that's spinning, and it's easy to see the edge. And the wheel's super hard, so even though it's super hard, it's leather, it's not going to damage your tool in any way. You just have to be cognizant that it's hot, it's going to heat up because it's so hard. And you just drop it in water all the time, you'll be good to go. But you can see it touching so well that you can get to the edge and quickly sharpen it and get right back to carving.
Now, Randy, you've been doing this for sharpening that way since you started. You said that your system you set up, it's lasted you what? How many years, you say?
It lasted until the buffing wheel stopped working, which was 30 years.
30 years. Wow.
And then I bought another buffing wheel, switched everything over, and I'm happy now. I think it was 25 years, but a buffing wheel from China for 25 years, I'm pretty good to go with that.
Now, when you were explaining to Blake and I the other day when we were meeting, you were kind of showing how you were honing the edges. You said that you're just getting rid of that spine area a little bit, and then you're kind of rounding that around. Is that correct?
I don't quite understand what you mean.
On the back of your tool, you're saying how that heel is there. Sorry, I had to use the right word, heel.
Do you want to show that video?
I can show that. Give me just a second. And I apologize. Blake, his internet has been funky on him, so I have to take over.
I'm actually back, Dave.
Oh, you're back.
We're having bad storms in Tennessee and heavy rain, and it just shut our power off. So I'm back on now. I apologize for that.
I'm sorry to hear that. We got 77 degrees out here in California.
And sun, probably sun, right?
And it's sunny and windy, breezy.
It's not in Tennessee. It's torrential downpours.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll share that honing video then here. Just give me a second.
Yeah, you can just jump around on that, Dave, because it's a long video, right? So the video itself just shows my buffing wheel and how I sharpen, or hone rather.
Hi everyone, Mad Carver here with Bear Wood Supply. I got my shaft chisels in and I'm going to do a review for you guys, but look. Tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand this side, this bevel, and this other side off a bit, and then I'm going to polish it up on the polishing wheel. So
you want to do number 3?
Do that.
Yeah, I'll head over to 3. Hang on.
If you jump to 3, it'll show the diagram that you're asking about.
Perfect.
And just jump ahead to the wheel.
All right.
Hi everyone, Mad Carver here.
Yep.
That we have the cutting edge, and then the bevel, and then the heel, and also the sides of the tool and the other side. And I tend
There you go. Sounds good. So basically, I would just use it in this manner, but you can see how I created the wheel and then just put it on the buffer and then tightened it up, and then that's what you see. Compound, and the wheel itself is hard enough for me to see the edge of my cutting edge meet up with the wheel, and then I just turn it as required. And it works for every chisel that I've worked with. How's that?
What do you do for the inside of the bevel?
So for the inside of the bevel, you can watch that at any time. But yeah, I wish I had brought a chisel with me. But for example, you have your chisel, you're looking at the front of it, your sweep is here. Okay, so the front, I would just turn the chisel over, and then I use the side of the wheel here to move the chisel in and out. So I can get the front of the chisel, no problem if it's a gouge. If it's a V tool or more of a U shape, a higher number sweep, then on the opposite side, which I don't have any video footage for, is another strop that is super thin, and I can get my tools in there for the most part. If it's not going to get in there either, then I'll just have to hit it with a small piece of 600 grit or another piece of leather by hand. But I don't have that issue, so it hasn't been an issue. Does that help?
Thank you.
Cool.
So Randy, if somebody's interested in buying carvings from you or wanting to do a special order or something like that, what do you recommend that they do? Or are you available for that kind of commission work?
I'm available, I think, but they have to be able to recognize it's going to take quite some time. I'm working with a group of carvers now that have completely satisfied my fix of needing to carve for more than 12 hours a day every day. So I'm very happy with that, but I'm happy to work with anybody that's willing to wait some time to get it. Absolutely. And then you just contact me at randy@madcarver.com. That'll be fine. Or you just look up Randy Stoner. You probably come with a bunch of junk. You'll see me eventually.
And so if people aren't aware, and I don't know if you already said this, if you did stop me while my power was out there, you have a pretty robust library of YouTube videos out there. Just if they search Mad Carver, you can go out and watch process videos or series videos, step by step on how you created some of these carvings. And like you said there a few minutes ago, the sharpening videos are out there available. There's all kinds of content on his YouTube page that that really people need to go out and take a look at, because there's a lot of great information out there, and it's readily available for everybody to check out. So make sure you go out and check that out. Are you still uploading videos to YouTube?
Me?
Yeah.
I haven't in quite some time, but I have a ton of teaching videos that I should get up there. I was working with another wood supplier after COVID and started working with him to create new videos. And so I was doing live feeds on their channel. And I have all of those, and I've divided them all up into like 3-inch sections so that people could just get the main point and then come back to it later to get the next main point. So I do need to get them up. I'll try to get them up, but I haven't in some time.
And then you just referenced the fact that you also teach. So if somebody wants to take lessons from you, that's an option as well.
Yeah, as long as they're good with, jumping on like a video chat program. In most of the case, it's just, Facebook, Messenger, and we just both hit, the video icon and then point at each other's work and talk and get them over the hump that they're at, or just help them all along the way.
So we haven't heard a whole lot from the people in the audience. Is there anybody out there that has any questions for Randy regarding his work, or anything you want to know about how he does it or why he does it the way he does it? Now's your time to ask. You must have did a good job, Randy, explaining everything.
Must have been comprehensive.
Yeah. The group of carvers that you work with, are you doing that every day? Is that something that's ongoing for you? This is a career for you now. It's not just something that you do on the side as a hobby. So
yeah, I'm pleasantly happy to say it's a career now.
Yeah.
Didn't think that was ever going to happen in my lifetime. I'm very happy with it now. But yeah, it's a career. I work with a team of carvers, and I'm pretty sure these carvers also think I'm super strange for spending so much time carving. And that's saying something for carvers. So, they're happy that I do it, but, I do think they think I'm weird. And so it's great. I work with Ray, and we do a bunch of things together as well. So it's really good.
So I'll tell everybody again, you can find Randy on YouTube. If you search Mad Carver, you can find him. He's on Facebook, Instagram. You can go out and check out all the pictures. We don't have the capability or the time to go out and show you all the carvings that he's done. But you've seen a little sample of his work, and everything that I've seen is equally as impressive as the ones that we showed you. So hopefully you'll go out and check out his work. If you're interested, like he said, email him, reach out. He's more than willing to share information with people. It's been a big honor for us to have you on, Randy, and to come on and talk about what you do. Like I told you before, I'm a big fan of your work, and just think it's something that's completely different than what a lot of people do. And it really makes you stretch your imagination and think a little bit more about the story that your carving tells instead of just having, a single standing figure. You learn to take that a little further than just having a single figure. So that's something I want to work on. And, I challenge other carvers to work on telling the story instead of just carving just to be carving. And I think that's kind of what you try to accomplish, isn't it, Randy?
Yeah, I think it's important to really try to find every single possible thing that could go into the scene that you're creating, and to be less worried about jumping from carving to carving to carving and trying to create as many as you can, and just adding could I get a hair in over there? Yeah, I think I can. I will. Can I get the left side of the shoelace on that? I think I can. Can I get a hole in the shoelace? Can I get more 3D action in that area with this subject matter? If you can do that and just take it to the absolute final conclusion, that will make you happier with that piece than it would ever have been with a standard cut and go.
Gotcha. Well, if we don't have any questions from the audience, I want to say thank you on behalf of the International Association. Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you for half a second. I'm sorry. Somebody was asking about the violin piece that you did, and I've got it pulled up here, and I'm going to share the screen back over real quick.
Cool.
They're asking if you could explain a little bit of how the violin piece was done.
That was a nightmare. So this is, I think, 3 inches thick. 3 inches thick. I had a picture of that. Actually, it was the straight one. This is from the right, but still, I had a picture of that. And the face that was in it was really, really blurry. And for relief carving, you cannot have anything blurry. You have to either remake it or change it or something of that nature. The body was also not in view. It was some sort of box or something in front of her. So I changed out the entire body, face, and hair with another picture of a number of different things. Got her nose, her hair, everything. I wanted certain things covered, like the back of the violin, because the back of the violin was stuffed underneath her jaw. You couldn't see it, and I didn't know enough about that scenario to redraw any of that. So I just put it under her hair, and so you'll see how I generally recreate things. So if I can't get to it, I can't see it, and I don't know what it is, then I'll cover it with something, in this case, hair. Her body type, not the body type, but the picture of her clothing, I really wanted something that was going to challenge me with the wrinkles and the curves and the billowing garment styles. So I put that in. As for the violin, that was gnarly, because I started work on the scroll at the very tip, and then I pushed back into the carving toward her face, and it was a slow go because the entire thing was heading downward into the block and to the right. And that was a lot tougher to deal with, because it seems great when you're looking at 2D art, but when you're trying to create 2D into 3D, it was super challenging. The strings, I think what I did for the strings was I cut that entire area clean and added them after the fact. I just made these super long toothpicks and placed them in there and glued them and then put them down. Yeah, it would be easier if I had more distinctive questions rather than just explain this piece. The entire thing was very challenging. Pretty much all facets of this was a super challenge to try to fit the perspective and keep the perspective going correctly.
Any other questions, Dave, that you saw there? I must have missed that one.
No, that was the only one that I saw that you missed.
All right, Randy. Well, thank you again on behalf of the International Association of Woodcarvers. We want to thank you for taking time out to come in and share with us. You are welcome back anytime. I know we were joking there before the meeting. Yeah, we would definitely like to reach out, maybe even see you working on some of your work, and maybe you can talk through that process or something sometime. So I'll be reaching back out to you. But again, I want to say thanks for coming on, and your work's phenomenal. And we'll be tagging all of the links and stuff to his social media content out on the YouTube video like we normally do. And that way, if you're interested in trying to get a hold of him or want to see more of his work, you can go on YouTube and just click on those links and be able to take you to that. Again, I want to remind everybody about the upcoming Carving the Rocky CCA show that's coming up in Colorado Springs, September 23rd and 24th. Once again, Chris Hammock will be on July the 29th to come in and talk about that. Who knows what all that Chris is going to share. I know there's an ugly cowboy contest. They've got a new book that's coming out. There's a lot of information that he's going to be sharing, and make sure you tune into that so you can hear what all they're going to be doing out there in Colorado. And again, make plans to go out if you have a chance. It's a weekend show. It's the 23rd and 24th. Denver's amazing. Colorado Springs is amazing. If you get a chance, you'll love it out there. Hope to see you out there. But again, Chris Hammock, July the 29th. Meet us back here at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll talk to Chris about the upcoming show. Again, I want to thank you all for coming in on Saturday afternoon. I apologize for our problems as far as the weather and the internet outage and stuff like that. Again, this is all very fluid. It's live, and hopefully Dave was able to step in and pick up with no issues. So again, I apologize for that. But thank you all for coming in with us. We'll do this again in 2 weeks with Chris Hammock, and this has been the International Association of Woodcarvers. Thank you all.